excited you're here, dude. I'm really excited
Thank you
here.
for inviting me.
Of course, dude. I love being around people like you, because one thing about you is, or I guess with most authors, is you're always learning, you know, and that's such a good thing when you're, I feel like learning is there's a direct relationship with learning and growing. It's like growing mentally, growing spiritually, growing physically. So I love being around people like you, man, and I'm super thankful you're here. I'm excited to talk with you, dude. So
a lot of failure to get to growth.
That's it.
Which is
that's
all
it,
part
man.
of it. Yeah.
That's it. We ready to rock? We good to go?
Okay.
Cool, man. Well, this is just like a conversation, man.
Yeah.
We just kind of, I hate the word interview, because I'm like, I try to do the interview thing for a little bit with some of our first guests, and I'm like, let me just ditch the script and let's just have a conversation. So yeah, I'm just ready to talk with you tonight, man. And I read your book, and freaking dude, it drastically changed my life, and I've already gotten so many of my friends on it. I want to know a little bit about you though. What was the inspiration behind this? And tell me a little bit about your story.
Yeah. So a couple of stories come to mind. First story is I went to a Southern Baptist high school in Virginia. And, it's not a place that I would recommend going through puberty. I would not wish it on many people. But it was that sense of like, if you are struggling with anything sexually, there's just this sense that you are going to be broken, and this is going to be part of your life for a long time. So in a lot of the Christian circles that I was coming out of, there was this sense of almost like going to culinary school, and the only thing that they teach you about is salmonella, but then they expect this masterpiece from you. That was my experience of Christian sex ed, was like, don't do this is harmful. And just really egregious metaphors and examples, particularly for girls and for women. So those were some of the origin stories of what I would refer to as just like a lust management approach. And that was like, if you are struggling with porn, if you have some fantasy, if you are just like curious about anything, this is something that needs to be managed, meaning you needed to attack it with internet monitoring, accountability, prayer. Especially as a therapist, but also in my own life, just recognizing that those things were not working. So that was kind of my current, or probably high school experience. But then, particularly in grad school, when I started, just diving into like, what is my story and what's the Stringer family story? One of the most formative things that happened to me was my grandfather. So I'm named after both of my grandfathers. So Jay was my dad's father's name, and he died 2 years before I was born. And then Elmer was my mom's dad's name. And I remember being at Elmer's funeral and just having this recognition that like, I knew so little of his life. We knew some of the headline stories, but I didn't really know him. Jay had died a couple years before I was born. And so there was this sense of like, if I'm going to get to know any of my family members, I have to start with my mom's dad, Dorothy. And long story short, I took her out to a cafe and I presented her with 3 skeleton keys. And I said, Grandma, these 3 keys symbolize 3 lunches that I want to take you out to just learn about your life. And on one hand, I knew that I was walking a little bit of that razor's edge, that my grandmother was just not a cold or warm person. Like a lot of people have very fond memories of their grandmother, and I envy them. And so with my grandmother, I knew that this invitation was going to be disruptive, but I just didn't know if she would take it or not. About 10 or 15 seconds pass. She doesn't say anything to the gift that I've just given. And then she eventually pushes the present back across the table to me and says, Jay, there are some doors you just don't open. There are some stories you just don't tell. And I was like, whoa, this is my family history. And so then I started thinking about my own life and, thinking about different sexual struggles that I've had, thinking about different, just being bullied, made fun of. a lot, just a lot of my own trauma history. And that was kind of the sense that I felt was stored inside my body, is there are some stories you just should not tell. And I realized that the stories that I was not telling were actually ruining so much of my life. And so that experience with my grandmother of being like, this isn't just my struggle, this is multi-generational. This is kind of how trauma is passed down. And so I think just seeing the current paradigms in the church not working, and then a lot of just my own family history, that was kind of that sense of defiance of like, something needs to be done about this particular topic. Because a lot of the, predominantly Christian books on this do a lot of shame management, or just kind of lust management. And then the progressive approach tends to be more shame management of, we don't want people to feel shame about what they're doing. And so let's mitigate shame, which I'm all for. But then the progressive approach, in my experience, doesn't really help people develop. Like, okay, once we're not pathologizing, which is always good, how are we actually cultivating people to understand their sexual story and to understand that the things that we desire can be shaped and affected by things that we have no understanding of. So there was one research study that I was looking at recently. Basically, they gave people these word pairings, and one of them was ocean moon. And then the researchers asked people, they said, tell me what your favorite detergent is. And the amount of people that said Tide detergent was like statistically significantly increased for that particular group that was exposed to the ocean moon pairing. And so the researchers, basically their assessment or their takeaway from that was that desires within us can be built up in ways that are beyond our ability to even know that they are in there. And so to me, there's so much truth in that. When we think about, why do I desire anything? And particularly in the sexual realm, why am I drawn to particular things? And why do I fantasize about this? Or why does this porn theme appeal to me? Or why does this archetype or person really seduce me or draw me in? So I think there is just so much within our sexual lives that are worth being curious about.
Oh my gosh, man. We could have just stopped there and been amazing. That was amazing, man. I love, you said something about like the trauma stuff and like some things are with your grandmother, right? Some stories or some doors are just not meant to open. Some stories aren't meant to be shared. And I think that the enemy has a really good way of making us believe that. And, I think of, this topic surrounding sexual sin, especially, it's so easy for guys and girls too. It's one of those things where it's like hiding just feels so much better,
Yeah.
And that is the totally opposite of what you should be doing. And I know we're going to get into that in your book because I want to dive into this with you. But before we do that, Jay Stringer, when you're not doing the author stuff, when you're not writing, when you're not speaking intellectually like you are right now, what else are you doing?